Hi guys, can you hear me and see us? Hi, I am Aurora Dominguez. I am a high school teacher, professor, journalist, and today I am Harley Quinn from DC Superhero Girls. So I guess we're all the DC Superhero Girls today. The beauty about Comic-Con is that we get to experience these type of events as an avid book reviewer and reader, and as a teacher. Stories are so important, and I also feel like it's so great to come here and get to meet so many amazing people, and I'm so honored to moderate this Fierce Reads panel. They always have such a great selection of powerful young adult books and authors, and this is also a weekend where we can all come together, enjoy what we love, and be ourselves. So what's more beautiful than that? Nothing. So with that said, we're gonna start the conversation. It's gonna take a little bit, and then we're gonna have about 15 minutes towards the end where all of you guys are gonna get a chance to ask some questions. So start thinking about those as we go throughout the conversation, okay? So we're gonna get started. First of all, ladies, welcome to New York Comic Con. To start, I wanted to have you guys introduce yourselves and your current book, your current Fierce Reads book, and what exactly is it about? What can people expect from the read?
You go first.
Me?
Target. No.
I picked the middle, so I won't go first. My name is Sona Charaipotra. I'm the author of How Maya Got Fierce. This is the most recent one. It is about a 17-year-old girl, farm girl from California, who ends up getting her dream, what she thinks is an internship at Fierce magazine, and it turns out they think she's 26 and they hire her as an assistant editor, and she's living her dream, but her parents will essentially kill her if they find out. So that's what it's about. And it's based on my own experience working in the magazine world, which is super fun.
Love it. And then go.
Hi, my name is Goldy Moldavsky. My most recent book is Lord of the Fly Fest. It's a mashup of the classic freshman year assignment novel, Lord of the Flies by William Golding, and the disaster that was Fyre Fest. And it's about a girl named Rocky Francisco. She's a podcaster. She wants to interview the biggest musician in the world. His name is River Stone, and she thinks her best chance is to corner him at the most exclusive music festival in the Bahamas. But when she gets there, she finds that all of the musicians have canceled, the festival is a scam, but River's still there, so she thinks her best way of getting this interview is to devise a story that the festival is secretly still on somewhere up in the mountains. And yeah, she tells people that the supermodel that was promoting the festival, Hella Badid, is up there somewhere watching. So all the influencers there are really jazzed and excited to keep the lie up that the festival is still on. And things get weird.
Oh, you do? Okay, so yes, you go next, and then we go around. And we got two powerful microphones. We're good.
I'm Jen Dahl, and my latest book is That's Debatable. It involves two high school debaters who have very different perspectives on debate, and one of them is in the game to win it. She's going to win scholarships, she's going to go to college, she's going to do everything right. The other is a boy from a progressive school who can't understand that he needs to argue what he doesn't believe in. So inevitably they come up against each other, things happen, there's some enemies to lovers stuff going on, there's romance, there's a lot of talk about debate, which I did as a high school student, and it's kind of about how you change the world when you are just figuring out what you believe and how to say it.
Hi, I'm Dani Pendergast. I'm the illustrator for the graphic novel Demon in the Wood, written by Lee Bardugo. It is the villain origin story of the Darkling from the Shadow and Bone series, and it is very tragic and gripping. The ending the twist will, do something to you.
Let me focus on anything else now. Hi, my name is Deeba Zargarpur, and I'm the author of House of Yesterday, which releases November 29. It is The Astonishing Color of After meets The Haunting of Hill House. It's a supernatural family drama that follows the twisty past of an Afghan-American family. And it follows 15-year-old Sara Rahmat, and she is drowning in yesterday. She holds on to the memory of her epic parents' love story from the before the separation, before the fights, before they lost track of happily ever after. And she thinks if my grandparents, who could flee war and a really bad political situation and keep their family together and immigrate from Afghanistan to America, could keep their love story alive, then why can't my parents? So she really clings to these fairy tale stories of love of her grandparents and really thinks that in the end, her family will be able to stay together. That all changes when she enters the gates of Sumner House. Sumner House is a renovation project that her mother is doing, and she thinks it's going to be routine. They're just going to get in, get out, make it pretty, and that's that. But nothing about this house is routine, and the more the time that they spend in the house, the more ghostly apparitions start to come up. And when she sees a ghostly figure of her grandmother in this house, it uncovers darker secrets about what she thinks her family's love story is, and shatters any notion of what she thought there once upon a time was. And the more that she delves into the house, the more the house has a hold on her. And she has to figure out what the secret is before the house does its thing, as one does. That is it.
I love this. So as you can see, and this goes into my next question, novels, especially these novels, they range from fantasy to obviously adventure and contemporary issues. All of these things also, I feel like contemporary fantasy and adventures can all merge together because life has so many different things that we deal with, right? And no matter what type of story you have, we relate to whatever has been said in that story at times. So you already spoke about content of your novel and what readers can expect. So this question is pretty much relating to YA books, their characters, these situations such as contemporary, fantasy, all of these themes. So when it comes to these characters and how people relate to them past, not just being young adults, adults as well, or even younger, why do you think these type of stories, especially your story, would resonate with readers so much from that age group and beyond?
You're gonna make me do it again?
Maybe. You know what? Goldy.
Sure.
And then
Go first.
I think people are really interested in the YA market probably because I think when you're a teenager and a young adult, that's when you really start experiencing things for the first time. The big important things like falling in love, for example, or realizing who you are, what your biggest fear is, and I think that's when it's most potent, that's when it's most exciting. That's what excites me about writing about young people, reading about young people, because that's when it's freshest. You know, I want to read about falling in love when someone's experiencing it for the first time and they feel like there's nothing else that's ever going to beat this feeling, you know.
Yeah, I agree. I think YA is usually about firsts and lasts, and that means really heightened emotions and a lot of drama, and I live for the drama. So like, as my kid will tell you, I still bring the drama daily. So I think a lot of us want those heightened emotional moments and like a sense of escapism, which YA definitely brings, whether it is contemporary or fantasy. So I think those elements draw readers of all ages.
I think we all have an inner 16-year-old, an inner 15-year-old. Doesn't matter how old you are. You have that teen self that remembers so vividly the pains that you went through, being bullied in school, or the crush you had that was unrequited, or just how hard it was to deal with your mother as So, I mean, I don't think that we lose that. I think you grow up and you deal with older people things like going to work and having to pay bills, but like you're still that person inside. And I think when I'm writing young adult books, that's who I'm thinking about and that's who I'm writing for, and it's everybody.
seems to be kind of a hard question for me. I don't know, because it's just tough for some reason. But I think when I was a child reading those books, they related to me a lot. And then as an adult, they are really nostalgic for me. And sometimes they hit those emotional marks that the adult books don't have. So I think it's just something that I always fall back onto. So I think that's really important.
I can talk a little bit why I love YA. I think growing up, like I loved getting lost in stories, getting lost in fantasy stories, just wanting to be the hero and just wanting to kind of transport myself in a different situation to kind of cope with like the reality of being a teenager. You know, my parents went through a divorce, and it was like the escape for me. But the problem with the escape back then was that, you know, you read to find yourself, especially as a young person. It helps you shape your worldview. But because I couldn't find myself in stories, or because the stories that were written about my identity were either about war or politics or like not so nice things, you didn't want to escape into those things. So it's kind of like that coming of age didn't happen for me until I got older, when Kindred started to diversify, and I finally got to see characters that looked like me. And as an adult, that was like a re-coming of age. Like I was that 15-year-old girl again, finally being able to go through these experiences for the first time. And that's kind of also why I write YA, for not only those teen readers, but those adult readers like me that just didn't have that moment back then, but can have it now.
I love that. Awesome answers. Now this question is a general one when it comes to scenes, okay? So when you are obviously writing and illustrating, because illustrating scenes is extremely powerful as well, when it comes to the scenes in these books and in the illustrations you created, is there one or two moments in your story that really stuck with you, that kind of stayed with you? No spoilers, but something that you were like, wow, this is something that just came to me, it had to happen for this story. And when it came with the illustrations, for you, some moment in that story where you found yourself very inspired to create that scene. What was that? You can mention one, more than one, up to you. Who goes first? You know what? It's only fair. Yes. Okay. Yes. We made a decision, guys.
Okay. I don't want to give anything away because obviously, you know, I want to sell the book. But I will say that. So when I was a high school debater, my debate coach would have us go into this supply closet sometimes. Like two people would work in a supply closet together. We were in a small classroom, and everybody's like debating around this classroom, so there needed to be some private spaces. And the supply closet plays a big role throughout the book in different ways. There are times when my characters go into the supply closet. In the beginning of the book, it's because something has happened in the school and they're seeking safety. At the end of the book, it's because someone locks them in it to try to prevent them from debating. So this closet just like was an important kind of visual for me throughout the writing of the book.
So I have two scenes that I think really I was excited about, and that I grew more excited about as I was working on it. The great thing about graphic novels is that there are parts that you're really excited to draw because like the drawing itself is fun to do. I get really psyched about drawing certain things. So obviously there were a few scenes, one specifically that when I read the short story, I had in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to draw that part. However, once I read the script, there was another scene, and again, I don't want to give anything away, but it was all dialogue, and in that dialogue scene, I learned a lot about the characters, and I learned that there was a lot I had in common with them, which is so fun that in a graphic novel you can get so many different aspects that you're excited about, whether it's the character development or like the visuals. I still don't know how much detail I want to go into with which scenes in particular, but I just when you can find you have a lot in common with characters that you also feel like you have nothing in common with, that's really interesting, I feel. Yeah.
I know this is hard because my favorite scene I can't say. I can spoil everything. But my favorite element in the book is, so Sona has a really big family like me, and so she has a lot of cousins. And so her cousin group are like her best friends, and there's about 5 cousins. And I think my favorite parts of this book were writing the scenes with them, because it brought back just a lot of moments that I had with my own cousins, and just that they're ruthlessly like mean to each other, and I don't know, like out of love. And it's like just like that banter with one another, like it just is so warm. That just, I don't know, that was my favorite.
I love that, the family dynamics.
I have those cousins too, it's really fun. So Maya is set in the magazine world, and my favorite scenes that I could really relate to were the first scenes when she just got to the magazine and she got to see like the fashion closet and things like that, because it just took me back to the start of my own career in journalism and being in that world for the first time and being like, this is how it's done, this is how all the culture is made. It was just such an awesome experience. I was 19 when I started, so I was actually pretty close to her age. And I think I could just channel those memories into those scenes, and that was really fun for me.
I really like writing party scenes. I don't know why. They seem like they would be really hard. I mean, there's so much going on.
Drama.
None of mine really have that much drama, but it's never my idea either. Like for the last 3 books that I wrote, it's always kind of been an editor's suggestion, and they're like, why don't you stick another party in there? And I'm like, really? Okay. And then in the Mary Shelley Club, the book before this one, it was actually the last scene that I put into my final draft was an after party, and it was a rich kid party full of debauchery, and we got to see it through the main character's eyes, and she sees it as totally disgusting, all these spoiled brats like ruining priceless artworks. And in this one, there's a party scene that I added late in the game where we switch perspectives. We see the party through the villain's eyes, and to him, he's trying to advertise it as like the best party in the world when actually it's like a total fiasco and a disaster, and he's trying to pretend that it's totally normal, that the signature cocktail is made out of Listerine and hairspray, where, you know, the reader would notice that it's actually not great, but party scenes. Yeah.
Party scene.
Awesome. And after scenes, we are all inspired by writers, right? Like I'm inspired by journalists and other writers as I try to write myself. Do you have any, I'm sure you do, but are there some writers, any sort of writers, YA, adult, any type of writer that has inspired some of your recent works, and why?
For sure, Liva Bray. I think I have to give credit to her. I don't know if this book would exist without Beauty Queens. I think she paved the way. I love her comedy, her genre bending. In general, I'm a fan of Chuck Palahniuk. I don't know if that's controversial or not, but I love him. But it really, it depends from book to book. Usually I will like pick a list of books or authors that I think are some people that I should look into if they've written something similar to me, or if they've written something that I'm curious about and am not that familiar with. So I'll make a list of books and authors that I should check out.
For me, as far as YA authors go, Nicola Yoon is at the top of my list, as well as Jandy Nelson, whose work is amazing, and Laurie Halse Anderson, who was one of my very early YA inspirations. But like, if I'm talking about YA as a category overall, not just books, My So-Called Life was like a formative TV show for me. It really has infiltrated the way I approach writing, and I just watched it with my 12-year-old. Finally, I got her to sit through it, because I tried multiple times. She was like 7, and she was like 9, and she was like, Mama, this is boring. But she finally watched it with me, and like, I think the thing about it is every character on that show is living their own life and has their own version of the story, and I like to approach writing that way. I think that's what inspired me.
I'll change the pattern.
I think for me, obviously, Marilu Takemafi, like I love their books, Holly Black. What got me into reading YA definitely was these big fantasy worlds and these sci-fi worlds. And it's embarrassing, but what got me like writing, not gonna lie, was after I watched like the first Twilight movie. I don't know, I was like a teenager, I was like, wow, this is inspiring. And that's what it got me writing.
Okay, so some of my favorite illustrators or comic book artists, I am really inspired by James Jean, Iko Shimizu. There's honestly so many. I like really don't discriminate when it comes to artists, but I also really enjoy Mobius's work and the manga artist Daisuke Igarashi. His books are fantastic, especially Children of the Sea. Yeah, I feel like a melting pot of like every single artist I see because everyone is incredible.
I also, I mean, Laurie Halse Anderson, who wrote Speak, and like my book is about speaking and finding your voice. I love Rainbow Rowell for her romance, where it's just like, oh my god, like that is what love felt like and still feels like. And a deep cut in the classics genre, but like A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith, which to me is just like a girl finding her way and finding out how she needs to be for herself with all of the social and cultural struggles that she faces. It's just like one of the most beautiful books that made me a writer. And of course, in that book, she wants to be a writer, so classic.
Love that. And we have an illustrator here, which is amazing because illustrations tell stories and it's such an amazing art. So this is a question directed at her, but also at the other authors. When it comes to graphic art and illustration, for you especially, what inspired you to create this type of art when it comes to relating to a story, to tell a story such as a graphic novel? And then for the rest of you, I would like for you to tell me if one of your characters were designed when it comes to graphic art. Do you have a type of character in mind that they could relate to that's out there right now that they would hang out with, or do you have an artist that you would love to have them create that character? Tough question, but we're gonna try. So
I guess I'll start. Okay, so I guess in a way I sort of fell into this. I always had to draw for a reason. I couldn't just like draw a picture. I always had to draw like my favorite characters or my favorite characters doing something. I started making children's books when I was literally a child and couldn't spell. I had my parents write the book for me. And as I got older, I started reading a lot of manga and I tried to draw my own mangas and they turned out terrible and I was super embarrassed. And I was like, okay, I'll never be able to do this. And then it wasn't until I went to school for art, and then after I graduated, I started drawing a lot more, and I realized this maybe was something that I wanted to do and I could do. There's just something magical that happens when you combine a story with pictures. It really can transport you, and just the fact that I could bring the images in my head to life with a story is incredible, and there's honestly nothing better than it.
So to make the question more streamlined for the rest of you, is there a character in your book, and I read them, so there's some amazing ones, that you feel would be perfect if they were illustrated or put in a comic book or manga, and why?
I'll go first. Yes, I feel so the cousins in my book, they're these twin brothers, Natsun and Amon. I feel like they would be the stars of a manga or something because they relentlessly tease each other. They're always shoving each other. They're always just picking on each other, and they're also the voice of reason for my main character. My main character is a jerk. She's very prickly, but she's also going through some stuff, so it's okay. But they're kind of maybe you shouldn't have said that. She's let me scream into my pillow and get out of my room. So I feel like they would be. That's a great stuff.
Very animated.
I mean, I think all of mine, like, obviously. I don't know. I especially have love for a younger character in my book, Tag's little sister, who is just like super sassy and does not take any guff from anyone. So she would be fun.
So in my, her best friend's name is Cherry, and her vibe is very Betty Page pinup meets Bollywood starlet from the 60s. And I just imagine that if she was done, there's an artist named Hate Copy, Maria Klopfer. She does very like graphic, it's so hard to explain, but like comic booky art, but with a South Asian sassy bent. And I feel like if Cherry was illustrated by Hate Copy, perfect.
Okay, so I'm not sure if I'm going to answer this correctly. I'm just going to say whatever. Has anybody here heard of Clone High? One, two? Okay. Yeah, I would love to see this book in the style of the greatest animated teen comedy ever, Clone High. Check it out if you have.
That would be perfect. There was more than I expected. Yeah, that's perfect. Like four people?
All right, so now we're going to talk about when it comes to rituals or kind of what eases you into writing or getting in the zone to write. For example, for me, if I'm writing something, I usually need silence because I don't know, music distracts me and I just need silence. Another thing that helps me out is I just found out I'm better when I outline things I'm trying to write instead of just going with the flow. And when I do go with the flow, hey, it works. Wait, I forgot like 50 things. So maybe you light a candle, maybe you need some coffee, maybe, what are some rituals that you really need? Oh, maybe you need to close the door because people are gonna interrupt you every 5 minutes. What are some rituals that you guys follow when it comes to getting in that zone to write?
I think someone's pointing their hand.
Sorry.
My daughter said I should go first because Adriana, you mentioned candles. I have a lot of candles and a lot of crystals, and I have to have chai in order to function, let alone write. But also, I'm a big outliner. I need a roadmap. I need like distraction. I was diagnosed with ADHD about 2 years ago in the thick of the pandemic because my kids also have it. That's how I got diagnosed.
Well, you're not sure.
No, I'm pretty sure. In any case, because of that, if I don't have some kind of mild distraction, I will literally go looking for like a bigger distraction. So like if I have something like House Hunters or the Food Network on in the background or a playlist that's specific to whatever I'm working on, that really helps me focus. Otherwise, I will literally go looking for distractions.
I try not to get too hung up on rituals or having things around me because then I feel like I wouldn't be able to just get up and go right wherever I need to, and that's kind of how I like to do it. But also, I do need silence, like you were saying. But if I'm trying to get into the vibe of a book, I guess between writing sessions, I like to think of a playlist or listen to music. For the Mary Shelley Club, I was thinking of soundtracks to the dark teen movies of the late 90s. Garbage and Flagpole Sitta and Sneaker Pimps, Portishead. And then for the book that I'm writing next, it takes place in 2006, so I've been listening to a lot of like The Shins and stuff like that, just to remind myself, what Snow Patrol sounds like.
I love that. All right.
And over here, ladies, who wants to go first?
I mean, I honestly don't know. I think getting anything done is extremely difficult in all situations, but especially over the last couple of years. And one of the things that helps me get something done is having a contract and someone wanting it. but silence is helpful, but I have a teenage stepson who's learning the guitar. So, I don't know. I have headphones. That's my ritual. Put on the headphones and then go get a snack.
It really depends on what part of the process I'm at. If I'm working on the sketches or pencils, it's really hard for me to pay attention to what I'm doing because it takes a lot of brain power to figure out the layout of the page. So I usually just put on music And that's pretty much it. And then when I was working on everything else, so the inks and colors, I would just throw on TV and just watch for hours on end. Well, listen to hours on end. I also listened to the audiobooks for the Shadow and Bone trilogy while I was working on this too, which was really fun.
My process is just chaos. Like, there is no plan. I wake up one day and I'm like, is today the day? Am I inspired today? My husband's like, you're on deadline. I'm like, it's not yet. It'll be 2 p.m. and he's like, now? And I'm like, yes. And then I just put on like Loveless. I don't know if anyone knows who Loveless is. They're like an indie cat. I've been putting them on and just like cranking up the music so it like blasts out my eardrums because I need that for some reason. And then I write. And then I'm like, yes. Like I need to feel the music in my soul and then like I'll start writing. But then if like there's an interruption, like say like I get a phone call or I get an email, then it's over. So it's like maybe I got 30 minutes in, but then it's over.
That sounds about right. I've been through all of these. So when it comes to characters that you have written and characters you've illustrated, is there one, and you can answer both or one or the other, is there one that you relate to the most as it comes to what they're going through or what happens throughout the story? Or is there one that you were illustrating or writing them surprised you? And you were like, wait, I was not expecting this to go that way. And why? Anybody?
I guess I can go first.
She goes some of the illustration.
Okay,
Yeah, let's go.
So I guess this kind of ties into the question I answered before. So the character I was talking about was the Darkling, little Eric Alexander. So there's a part where he talks about how he's really frustrated that he's just constantly moving around and he can never settle down anywhere and it's really getting to him. And that's something I relate to a lot because for the past almost like 4-ish years, I've spent almost every year in a different state, which is really, really hard. And while like my story hasn't ended up where his story ends, I get how that can be really tough and mentally taxing.
So I can't talk about the character that surprised me because then that would be a spoiler. So I can't say that. But I guess the character that maybe I most related to, or surprisingly, like I thought like it would be my main character, but it's not. It's like her best friend who is her neighbor next door, and he's like this really nice guy who's like really patient and there for her, and she's just like, leave me alone. She's like, please leave me alone. And he's like, but I'm here for you. She's like, I don't need you. And I'm like, he's like, okay, I'll give you your space, whatever. But like he, when I was writing him, like in his character arc, he finally does get a backbone, where he finally is like, you can't treat me like this anymore. And just seeing like their friendship evolve, it was interesting to see myself in the best friend than her. But I love her, so it's okay.
My two main characters are basically like the two sides of my brain. And they're talking. I have alternating perspectives through the book, so it's basically like me having an insane conversation with myself about things, and then having a conversation with the other self about the things. But what they are is, one of them is playing by the rules and trying to win in a society that is inherently unfair. So she plays by the rules, that's what you're supposed to do. And she still kind of gets in trouble for it. And then one of them is trying to circumvent the rules and do things differently. And it's really about, I think like where we are in a society and the things that we deeply need to change and how we move forward. How much do we keep and how much do we junk and build something new that's better. And this is not a spoiler, but my book does not have the ultimate answer to that question because I am not a politician or I'm just a writer. I'm trying to figure it out. But I relate to both of them very deeply.
I love that.
So I'm going to steal Jen's answer, but twist it because, so my book that came out before this, it's called Symptoms of a Heartbreak. It's about a teenage doctor, and her mom's also a doctor, so she's followed exactly the path that's been laid out for her, and then she goes off the rails. And then in Maya, she sort of goes off the rails right from the start, and then she's sort of trying to figure out her how to explain why she's choosing that path to her parents. So I feel like they are sort of the flip side of a coin too, but in a different way, and definitely the same thing, like the two different sides of my own brain. As the oldest daughter in a family of brown people, Deeba's like, yeah, I get it. But like, that's exactly what I'm trying to navigate in all these things, and it's always these characters who are really hungry and sort of bulldozers. So I feel like that's what it is.
I don't usually like go into writing thinking that I'm trying to put myself on the page. I don't typically relate to my characters. They're so separate from me. Maybe it's because they're all mostly morally bankrupt people. And I hope I'm nothing like them. Everyone here is a strange character. But the main character in Lord of the Fly Fest, I think she goes through something really relatable, which is that she is surrounded by all of these influencers who are very online all the time, and they all care about the surface of things, the outside of things, and she's very much an internalized character. She's on a mission. She doesn't care about what her outside looks like or what anybody else's outside looks like. And as the story goes on, she's starting to feel that, pressure of, should I care about this stuff? Am I losing my mind because I'm the only one who doesn't care about this stuff? So it's kind of about pulling back the curtain to that world to show, what you see online on Instagram isn't exactly the reality.
And as you guys have heard, these are all very powerful and relatable stories. Even when they're fantasy, when they're contemporary, it doesn't matter. Like, I feel like a story is a story. Like you mentioned, the social media aspect, very true. News magazine world, been there. Very true. Not only that, you spoke about your mental health. I just got diagnosed in June, so July, August. We were going to talk. I got you. And then, as a high school teacher, debate is huge at my school as well, and I see what they go through. Lee's characters are so iconic, and just seeing them come to life with illustrations has been amazing. And then that type of novel where it's just so gripping when it comes to characters and fantasy, and then you add that supernatural element. I feel like all of us can find something to relate to, right? And that's why I'm so happy to be here today with you guys. But I have just two last questions before we open the floor for your questions, because that's why you're here. And my last question is pretty much, what can each of you share that you might be working on now that will happen in your literature, art world in the future? Is there something that you're working on next that we can look forward to that you can share? Because I know at times you can't, or that you can kind of secretly share without spoiling too much. But is there something that you are working on right now that we can all look forward to?
So my next work, I'm actually going younger. So I'm writing a middle grade series. It's called Farah and Rizad and the Ring of Fate. It's releasing from Labyrinth Books in 2024. And it's basically about a 12-year-old girl named Farah who makes a wish on a magical ring and accidentally traps her father in it and has to go and travel to the Jinn world, because she finds out that her father is not just like a human, but he's actually a Jinn king, and that she's half Jinn, and she has to travel to his world to free him. And there chaos ensues, and she realizes that her wish did, not only did she trap her father, but she trapped the other 6 ruling Jinn kings, and that if she doesn't release them from the ring before time is up, that would be really bad. So she has to travel to the underworld to face the most devious Jinn king of all, and hope that she can free everyone.
Alright, so there's some stuff that I can't share, but what I can say is that I think someday that I do want to do my own graphic novel. I would love to write and illustrate it, but that wouldn't be for a very long time, because you gotta do all the parts first, and it's very time consuming.
I'm in the early stages of writing a book for adults that is about ghosts and real estate. And
Oh my God,
I need to read your book. So,
Yeah. I love that. That's amazing.
I'm editing an anthology currently with Samira Ahmed, who's also a YA author. It's called Magic Has No Borders. It comes out in May 2023, and it's fantasy stories from the South Asian diaspora, and it has some of your favorite authors, Seba Tahir, Tracy Baptiste, a whole slew, Preeti Chibber, who's here tomorrow at Comic-Con, a whole slew of amazing writers, and it's across the diaspora. So that's coming out May 2023, and it's called Magic Has No Borders. And then I'm working on a YA about a character who has undiagnosed ADHD, and it implodes her world, and that's super fun.
I don't know how much I'm allowed to say. My editor's here, Dana. Am I allowed to say what my book is about? Okay. It's a tragedy rom-com, as I like to call it, very different from my other work. It's about a girl who grew up in Brooklyn, and she finds that she is undocumented and needs to get married to get her papers.
That's awesome.
That sounds great.
And then one last fun little Comic-Con related question, and then we'll have some audience questions, so start thinking of what you want to ask. Favorite fictional superhero or villain?
I'll go first. Oh yeah, she Miss Marvel.
Right here, and my daughter is, stand up.
Stand up.
She's the only Miss Marvel I've seen so far at Comic-Con. Why is that?
It came yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh.
I was her yesterday. You're awesome. Do you have a favorite one? She looks cute.
Yeah, I love Harley Quinn. I love her accent.
There you go. She's cute. Yeah. All right.
I don't have necessarily, I don't know. I got really excited when I saw the Studio Ghibli booth.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, basically any Studio Ghibli heroine is my favorite.
I have no idea why my mind took me to this. For some reason, I thought of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and my favorite villain is Ozai. He's very handsome.
The first thing I thought of was No Face from Spirited Away.
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
I love it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, and now we're gonna take some audience questions. Any brave souls back there? Oh, I see some. Yes.
Oh wow.
Wow. Do you want to come up here? You're welcome to.
That's a long walk.
That is. It's a little stroll.
Do a wireless mic?
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. We did it. Take it back. No, stop. We're good. Yeah. Okay. So take it over.
Okay.
We just want to make sure you get the mic. Yeah, there you go. You okay? Okay. Thank you so much.
Hi, thank you all for this.
Of course.
There was something you guys talked about earlier in the panel about being adults who like YA and writing also not just for teens, but for adults who read YA. And I'm an adult. I'm a YA librarian, so I read a lot of YA. I had a question kind of about that experience because the number of adults I've seen and reviews I've seen from adults about YA books that says, you know, this is really good, but it feels like it was written, it's like a little young. It's like not really written for adults who read YA, it's written for like, you know, maybe for teenagers. And every time I hear that, I'm like, that's because it is. And how do you balance that, speaking genuinely as someone who loves YA and is not a teenager?
Oh yeah, perfect. Gotcha. There we go.
Like when Harry Potter was getting really big, there was this huge, it seems like it comes every few years, there's like another surge of, oh my God, you're old and you're reading a book for young people, and like shaming both older people and the writers of young adult literature. And I just think we should listen to none of it, because if you're reading anything, you're amazing. And I don't know, just like, I just block it out. Because I think it's silly. It's like, books are there to make you feel and help you empathize and be a better person, and whatever level you're reading. I mean, I love children's books. They're amazing. So tell those people to shut up.
It's always so funny to have adults be like, oh, you know, it just feels a little
Teacher
young.
that teaches
Yeah.
15-year-olds.
They're like gatekeeping.
Just read whatever you want. That's what I tell them.
Yeah, and I think just from an editorial perspective, I think the numbers are 60% of YA readers are adults. So they're reading the books. Who cares what they complain about? Like literally, adults make stupid decisions too, because that's the adult reviews I get are, she makes some really dumb decisions. Yeah, we all do. It's contemporary. That's all I have to say.
I say the same thing when they're like, no, I don't understand this. They're so stupid. I'm like, they're teenagers. You're telling me you made perfect decisions as a teenager because I'm willing to bet you did.
Not as an adult either.
Thank you for
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Anybody else? We have a mic over here. My husband Sebastian Dominguez. If anybody wants to ask a question, come on over. Anybody? It's such a big room over there. There we go. Thank you.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey.
So, what I gotta ask is, the publishing industry is really changing a lot lately. With like ebook sales and physical. How do you think the transition is gonna end up? Like, how do you think books are gonna be profitable in the future, 20 years from now?
You wanna go first, Deeba? Yeah.
Oh yes. Yes. Mike.
That's interesting. I would say with the rise of ebooks and the future of books in general, I think they're, I don't know if I'm old school, but I don't think they're going anywhere in the books. I think there's always been this debate of a physical book versus an ebook, and where if anyone doesn't know, currently there are supply chain issues, there's shortages, there's paper shortages, printers have been shutting down in the US, which is not good. And it's created a lot of backlog and delays and a lot of expense. Mm-hmm. And it kind of brings up the question of what is the feasibility of physical books? And then also what is the feasibility then of kind of eliminating that option and going into digital? I think in children's, physical books are always going to be needed because I think children very specifically need to read on paper. Mm-hmm. There's something about the experience of holding a book, and whether it's seeing an illustration or reading the words and having it in your hands and turning the page, that tactile experience that is so important for a young reader and also for a young adult, that makes the reading experience so personal. So even if I know the book prices are rising, but I think they're necessary in this space. With adult, it's totally different. I feel like I read everything on my phone, all my novels, because I'm just zipping through. But for a younger reader, I don't think these books are going to go anywhere.
Yes, of course.
And right now, during the pandemic, book sales have actually gone up, which is a remarkable thing, especially given so few bookstores were open for a long time. So I think that the industry is healthier than we often give it credit for. And I also think that story is story, and right now, especially with publishing, book publishing is feeding so much of Hollywood. You're gonna see here at Comic-Con, there's so many things that are adaptations, and things are going across media. Podcasts are now happening from audio and stuff like that. Audiobooks are huge. So I think, there's just so many different ways of storytelling, and the classic book form has been around for, 500? A long time. And I don't think it's going anywhere, but I do think it's changing and evolving, and we're seeing a lot of different formats that work. I'm going to use that word synergy, which is the stupidest word ever, but it is happening, I think.
Thank you. Do you have another question? Thank you so much for that question. I appreciate it. Anybody else in the crowd have a question that you want to ask? Yes, of course.
Thank you all so much. This has been such a great conversation. Looking at all of your covers, they're just stunning. You've got some really beautiful colors, and they're very eye-catching. Would you be able to tell everybody a little bit about the process of choosing your cover? We could go down the line. Again, they're just so gorgeous. I can imagine them on the shelves already.
They're gorgeous.
I'll go. I love my cover, I was so blessed by the cover gods, because the whole process from working with my editor and the design team, coming up with the concept and finding artists, I really appreciated FSG's team, where they really asked me what was important for me as a creator when it came to who was creating the art and how the character was being designed, especially because you don't see a lot of Afghans on book covers. And we really worked together through the picking the artist. The artist is Melina Khodami. She's an Iranian illustrator. Beautiful work, and just working with her and going through each round of revision and sketches and just really feeling like I was really heard in my design process. Couldn't have gone better. I'm so happy.
So I guess this was a little different because I did the whole cover except for the type. The process was really fun. As soon as I finished all the interior pages, we got to finally do the cover, which was so fun to do. I started by doing like a ton of really bad, quick, sketchy drawings. I think I sent in maybe like 20 to 30 of them. I'm really impressed that anyone could read what they were, but they chose their favorites. I took about 5 or 6 of them to a more refined sketch. They picked 2, then from the 2, then we decided on the 1, which ended up being this one here. And then I just kind of drew it, and it became this. This project is a little bit different than other covers I've done, because usually you go back and forth a lot. There's a lot of decisions with like what colors are going to be on the cover, move this hand here, do this, do that. And with this cover, they said, Dani, we trust you, just like draw, like choose whatever colors you want. And so it was such a fun project, and I was really impressed with all like the decorations and like the textures they put on it, because I was not expecting that. So it was really a fun surprise.
Yeah, the cover process is pretty cool, especially with FSG and Macmillan. They definitely get author feedback, and I'm not sure that's true for every publisher, but my favorite thing are like the little surprises that you get. Like if you take off the book cover for my book, you get like a slice of pizza here, a cat eating pizza here, which are all like little Easter eggs from inside the book. And it's just like, it's so special and heartwarming that the attention to detail and how much care is given, and I'm not even sure I'm answering the right question, but I think that, it's just very special to be able to collaborate with people who are very talented about illustrating and designing books.
Thank you. So the cover process for this book was very interesting, because it was literally like the beginning of the pandemic. And they wanted to do not an illustrated cover like my previous book, Symptoms, had. They wanted to do something with a model because it's set in the world of magazines and fashion. And they were like, let's find a fashion model thing. And stock photos of brown people are hard to find, which the design team quickly learned. And then what we had to do was, first they had given me a stock photo of a brown person. And it was a great picture, it was very fashiony, but her hair was short. So my editor was like, well, why don't we just give Maya a makeover in the middle of the book? She can just chop her hair off. And I'm like, this is a Sikh character and she's not gonna chop her hair off. That's a religious component of their identity, and she's just not gonna do that. So then we had to go back to the drawing board. So then I came up with the idea, there's a bunch of South Asian fashion and beauty influencers who do their own, they just take fashiony pictures and post them every day. I don't know how they do it. But, so we reached out to one of them, her name is Seedat Siani, and she sent us a slew of photos, and we picked one, and here she is on the cover, and it's supposed to look magazine-y, and I think they achieved that. I think it's really cool. And we just wanted something where she would look fierce, so voila.
That's so cool. I just feel really lucky that Henry Holt gave me this amazing cover. It's my 4th book, and it's my favorite cover by far. And they were really open to any suggestion that I had. They had a different font at first, and I asked for it to be a little more crazed, I guess. She had a different shirt, and I said, well, throughout the entire book, she only has one shirt, and it's pink, and they were receptive, and they gave me a pink shirt, and yeah, I'm just really lucky with how it turned out.
Well, guys, first of all, thank you, authors, for letting me be in conversation with you. Thank you, Fierce Reads, for having me. This has been so great. Don't forget to go get the books. I recommend them. And thanks for spending time with us this afternoon, and have a happy con.